Hi everybody, just wanted to talk a bit about making stocks and the ingredients that are used in making stocks. I'll make another video with some of the process part. So I've got in front of me here all the ingredients that I would need to make a beef stock. These are beef bones. So one thing that's going to be in common with all stocks is that they'll have some type of bones that are used to add flavor and to yield gelatin in them. The one exception to that is vegetable stock, which really is not a stock. It's more of a flavored broth, essentially from all the vegetables, but it's oftentimes just referred to as a stock. So I'm going to explain what the ingredients are and kind of what their role plays in the stock, and maybe describe the method a little bit, and then again I'll make another video where we talk about process. So on this one tray here where I have the vegetables, got a few things. So one, I've got the traditional mirepoix, which is onions, carrots, and celery. So you're almost always going to see that in any stock. The one potential change might be instead of a carrot, a parsnip, which looks like a white carrot, if you've never had them. And then I've also got all the ingredients for making a sachet or a bouquet garni. And we'll talk in our lecture about what the difference between those two things are. But we've got fresh thyme. I've got the stems of parsley, and before I use them, I would take off any of these leaves that I still have on here. So I just want the stems. I've got bay leaves, and these little black things here that hopefully you can see are black peppercorns. So those four things together are used in making a bouquet garni, which may be wrapped in something like cheesecloth and some butcher's twine to make a sachet. And a sachet is when they're all wrapped together. And then I've also got some mushrooms and a little bit of fresh garlic, garlic cloves. So those are common additions to stocks, although you won't always see people use them in them. You don't have to. You don't want to use too much garlic because you don't want to dominate the flavor of the stock with garlic. And I've also got the bones, right? And these are beef bones. Move this out of the way. And there's two different types of beef bones here, and that's ideal when we're making stocks. So I have shank bones, which come from the legs, and so they are just cut. Maybe if anybody has a dog, you may know that there's these are marrow bones, and there's marrow in the center of the bone, which adds flavor to the stock. There's a little bit of meat on these, and there's connective tissue on these, and that's really one of the main thing that we want from these bones, is that they have that connective tissue, which ultimately is going to end up as gelatin in our stock. So when we have connective tissue and we cook it in a liquid, and so connective tissue plus water plus heat, you'll end up with gelatin, and that's where gelatin comes from. And then we also have neck bones. Okay, so these come from along the spine of beef, and these have also connective tissue in them, but they also have a lot more meat on them. And so if these are going to kind of provide a couple, the neck bones can provide a lot of coloring and roasted flavors if we cook these bones, whereas the shank bones are going to provide more of that just gelatin. So a combination of both, again, is ideal. And then I've also got some wine, and typically what we would do process-wise is I'm going to roast off these bones to get them all nice and caramelized, and so I develop a lot of flavor on them. And then we would cook these vegetables, the mirepoix in particular, and the mushrooms as well, either in the oven when we do the bones, although they wouldn't go in at the beginning because they would burn, or I could also do it right on top of a range in a pan, and I'd want to cook them in a little bit of oil until they get colored, and then we would combine those two things together in a big pot. This is not a very big pot, but I don't have a lot of bones. And we'd cover it with cold water. We'd add our sachet, and then we'd bring that to a simmer. And then we'd turn our heat down real low and cook it very slowly until we broke down all of the connective tissue that's in these bones, which in the case of beef bones, that's going to take about 8 to 10 hours, right? So this oftentimes happens in food service overnight. If we were using different bones, like chicken bones, for example, they're a lot smaller and it cooks a lot faster. In the case of chicken bones, it's usually going to be more like 3 hours or so to cook those bones and to get the gelatin out of the bones and the flavor from them. I've described how to make a brown stock. To make a white stock, we would not be doing any of that cooking. So we wouldn't roast the bones, we wouldn't cook the vegetables. We would put everything into the pot as it is, cover it with cold water, add our sachet, do the same process I described with the brown sauce, and we'd end up with a stock that's much lighter in color and is used in other different types of applications. So if we're using stocks to make things that are really full flavored and have a lot of the roasted flavors and so forth in them, a lot of times we want a brown stock. When we're trying to make something a little lighter, then we might be making a white stock. Chicken stocks oftentimes are white stocks. Could also be fish bones, could be pork bones, not as common, but it also could be pork bones, and lamb bones. So all of those could be used to make stocks. I didn't describe what I do with the wine. Typically, after I've roasted the bones and I take all the bones off of the pan, there's going to be a lot of browning on the pan. And I would deglaze the pan with the wine, and that would help to bring all those flavors off of the pan, and then I can add it into the pot with the bones and everything else. I also forgot to bring out some tomato paste. That's another thing that's usually added into a brown stock. Not a white stock, just a brown stock. So stay tuned for some more videos on stock making.